It is -20 outside an 1800s cabin. The fire is dying, and a family of 5 will not relight it. Instead, they pull heated bricks from beside the stove, wrap them in cloth, and slide them to the foot of the bed. Those bricks will radiate warmth for hours, heating people, not rooms. Meanwhile, tonight, you will heat your entire house while you sleep, every hallway, every empty bedroom. Frontier families survived brutal winters on a fraction of the fuel, using a genius heating hack that modern homes completely forgot. The real question is not whether it worked, it is what made us abandon it. Every winter on the frontier started with a race against the cold and the clock. Before the first frost, families sized up their wood pile like it was a bank account, except this was survival, not savings. The numbers were punishing. A typical family needed about 4 cords of firewood to make it through a single winter. That is 512 cubic feet, enough logs to fill 2 pickup trucks stacked to the brim. And that was just to keep the fire burning at night. Not for cooking, not for chores, not for smoking meat. Getting that much wood was not a one-time chore. It ate up 30 to 40 hours each week through the fall and winter. Chopping, splitting, hauling from the woods, stacking it to dry, every member of the family pitched in. Diaries from the 1850s talk about boys with blisters on their hands, mothers gathering kindling before dawn, and fathers who spent whole days with an axe instead of a plow. The work did not stop when the snow fell. If you ran out midwinter, you faced a choice: freeze or go out into knee-deep drifts to cut more, hoping you would make it back before dark. Firewood was not just fuel, it was currency. In frontier towns, a single cord could be traded for a bale of hay or a sack of beans. Some years, 10 to 15% of a family's total resources went to wood. If you wanted to buy instead of cut, the price stung. $2 or $3 a cord in 1860, which could be a month's worth of eggs or flour. For families scraping by on barter, every log burned was a log you could not trade for something else. But the real problem came at night. Burning a fire from dusk till dawn meant feeding the hearth every few hours, even when everyone should have been sleeping. A fire left untended could die out, leaving the cabin freezing by morning. But keeping it going was risky. Chimney fires, smoke inhalation, and the constant threat of sparks landing on straw bedding. The labor did not just cost time and money, it came with real danger. All that effort, and most of the heat, still escaped. With thin log walls and no insulation, cabins leaked warmth as fast as families could make it. Heating the whole room meant burning through wood at a relentless pace, only to wake up with cold feet anyway. The nightly fire was a leaky bucket. Pour energy in, watch it drain away. The math just did not add up. So families started looking for ways to stretch every log. If you could heat the sleeper, not the room, you could save hours of labor and a mountain of wood. That is what made the old brick warming trick so valuable. It was not just about comfort, it was about survival, efficiency, and squeezing every bit of heat from a hard day's work. A hot stone at the foot of the bed might sound like a folk remedy, but the logic behind it is as solid as the rock itself. On the frontier, families did not need a physics degree to notice that certain things, like bricks or river stones, stayed warm long after the fire died down. They just called it common sense. You heat up something heavy and dense, and it holds on to that warmth, letting it out slowly through the night. That is thermal mass in action, plain and simple. Think about the difference between sitting near a campfire and hugging a sun-warmed boulder. The fire blasts heat into the air, which drifts away with the wind. The stone, on the other hand, soaks up every bit of warmth and then radiates it back, steady and gentle, for hours. That is why a stone pulled from the hearth can still feel cozy when everything else in the cabin is freezing. Frontier families figured out which materials worked best without ever seeing a chart. Soapstone was a favorite because it was dense and could be carved to size, but bricks and smooth river rocks did the job too. The trick was picking something that would not crack when heated and could be wrapped up safely. Once heated, a 10-pound stone or brick tucked in a wool blanket could stay warm for up to 8 hours, enough to get a family through the coldest part of the night. This was not about heating the whole room. It was about targeted comfort, direct warmth, right where it mattered. The rest of the cabin could drop below freezing, but under the covers, toes stayed toasty. The warmth did not just fade instantly, it seeped out slowly, the way a sun-warmed wall keeps a barn from icing up after sunset. That slow release is what made the difference. Instead of burning through precious wood all night, families could shut down the fire and let the stone do the quiet work. There is a big difference between radiant and ambient heat. Radiant warmth is like the sun on your face, focused and personal. Ambient heat tries to raise the temperature of the whole room, which in a drafty log cabin is a losing battle. The hot brick method sidestepped that problem entirely, delivering comfort straight to the sleeper instead of wasting energy on empty air and leaky walls. Even today, the physics have not changed. Dense materials with high heat capacity, meaning they can soak up a lot of energy without getting dangerously hot, are still the backbone of the most efficient heating systems. But on the frontier, all this science was wrapped up in a simple nightly ritual: heat the stone, wrap it up, and let it work its quiet magic till dawn. For families who measured winter in cords of wood and hours of labor, that little bit of borrowed warmth was worth its weight in gold. Every evening, as the last light faded and the wind pressed against the cabin walls, the routine began. Someone, often the oldest child or the mother, would choose a stone or brick, usually about the size of a loaf of bread and weighing between 8 and 12 pounds. The choice mattered. Too small, and the warmth would vanish before midnight. Too big, and it risked cracking from the heat or burning the bedding. Soapstone was prized for holding heat the longest, but bricks and river rocks did the job if that is what was on hand. The brick or stone went right onto the hearth, nestled close to the hottest part of the fire. There it sat for a good hour, sometimes more if the night looked especially cold. While the stone soaked up heat, the family finished chores, ate supper, and listened to the wind howl outside. Timing was part instinct, part experience. Diaries mention testing the stone with a quick touch, hot enough to make you pull your hand back, but not so hot it would scorch fabric or crack from the shock. Once the stone was ready, tongs or thick mitts were used to pull it from the fire. No one wanted a burn, so this step was careful work. The next part was almost ceremonial, wrapping the hot mass in layers of wool, canvas, or whatever thick cloth was handy. Some families used old flannel shirts or a spare quilt, the idea being to hold in the heat but keep the sleeper safe from burns. Wrapping also slowed down how quickly the stone lost its warmth, turning a quick burst of heat into a steady, gentle glow that could last 6 to 8 hours, long enough for a full night of sleep. With the stone bundled up, it was carried to the bed, usually placed at the foot, under the covers, or sometimes slipped between the mattress and the floor. In families with several children, stones might be shared, passed from one bed to another on the coldest nights. Some households had a dedicated rack or wooden box at the foot of the bed to keep the hot stone in place and off the sheets. Others just tucked it under a heavy quilt, trusting the layers to do their job. The rest of the cabin might drop below freezing overnight, but under the covers, toes stayed warm. There was no need to keep the fire burning all night, and no one getting up every few hours to poke the coals or add more wood. The stone took over the work, radiating heat slowly, quietly, and safely. By dawn, it would be cool to the touch, maybe damp with condensation, ready to be reheated for the next night. This routine played out winter after winter, simple, repeatable, and effective. For families who counted every log and every hour of sleep, that little ritual was as important as locking the door or saying a prayer before bed. Before log cabins appeared on the American frontier, the ritual of warming beds with bricks and stones was already a fixture in European homes. In 18th century England, household manuals like The Complete Housewife from 1756 gave instructions for heating fire bricks in the hearth, wrapping them in cloth and tucking them under the covers. French families used chaudes-briques, small clay bricks heated on the stove, then slipped into beds. Across Germany and Switzerland, peasants relied on hand-shaped river stones called Steinwarmer, passed down through generations. These were not luxuries. They were as ordinary as a broom or kettle woven into daily routines. Ritual. By the late 1700s, these traditions crossed the Atlantic. American homemakers included warm stones and hot bricks in their own manuals. The American Housewife, published in 1791, listed the bed-warming brick alongside recipes and cleaning advice. Its instructions were precise. Heat a 10-pound brick in the hearth, wrap it in linen, and place it at the foot of the bed. The same book cautioned against overheating, warning that a scorched sheet was a sign of carelessness, not comfort. As settlers moved west, the practice adapted to the land. In New England, where brick-making was common, heavy clay bricks became the standard. In the Midwest and Great Lakes, soapstone, dense, and heat-retentive, was favored. French immigrants in the Mississippi Valley brought their chaudes-briques, while others made do with whatever was at hand: smooth river rocks, broken bricks, even cast-iron pans filled with embers. Each region left its mark, but the core idea held steady: heat something dense, wrap it well, and let it radiate warmth through the night. By the early 1800s, inventors set out to refine the method. In 1809, the U.S. Patent Office granted patent number 658 for an improved bed warming apparatus, a metal frame holding a heated brick and shielded by a hinged lid. Later patents, like the one from 1845 called the portable bed warming pan, added insulated handles and better covers, reflecting a growing market for these small-scale heating devices. Surviving patent drawings in museum archives reveal the care and ingenuity invested in these designs. Patent artifacts from this era fill museum shelves: bricks with scorched edges, soot-blackened iron pans, smooth stones worn by decades of use. Curators identify these pieces as evidence of a household's resourcefulness, objects passed down, repurposed, and sometimes rediscovered in family attics. Their presence in collections is not just nostalgia, it is proof that this technique was once essential. As the 19th century progressed, the ritual of heating a brick or stone before bed remained a quiet staple in American homes. Manuals, patents, and artifacts all point to the same reality. For generations, families relied on personal, targeted warmth, microheating, long before central heat was imagined. The story of the bed-warming brick is a thread of household ingenuity running through centuries, quietly resisting the idea that progress must always mean bigger or more complex. Coal stoves swept into American homes in the decades after 1820, promising more heat with less mess. The old nightly ritual of heating bricks and stones started to look outdated as cast-iron stoves took center stage. By the 1860s, coal was cheap, easy to transport by rail, and burned longer than wood. Stoves could keep a room warm for hours with just a few shovels of fuel, no more chopping, hauling, or wrapping hot rocks at bedtime. In cities and growing towns, radiators soon followed, piping steam or hot water from a basement furnace to every corner of the house. Forced air systems arrived in the early 1900s, pushing warm air through ducts so that every room could feel like spring, even in the dead of winter. Manufacturers did not just sell hardware, they sold a new idea of comfort. Sears catalogs from 1905 boasted about central heat as the end of old-fashioned chores. Ads poked fun at bed warmers, calling them relics fit for museums, not for modern families. Radiators and furnaces were not just appliances, they were badges of progress. The message was clear: true comfort meant heating the whole house, not just the bed. As these systems spread, the humble brick or stone warmer faded from memory. The definition of warmth itself changed. Instead of targeted personal heat, families came to expect a steady, invisible blanket of warmth everywhere, no matter the cost in coal, wood, or later electricity. The quiet, nightly work of the heated stone was replaced by the hum of pipes and the promise of effortless comfort. The old method was not just forgotten, it was pushed aside by a culture eager to leave behind anything that looked like hard work or old times. A 10-pound block of soapstone heated in the evening fire holds about 2,900 British thermal units of energy. That is not just a number, it is the hidden muscle behind the bed warming trick. To put it in perspective, a modern 12-foot by 12-foot bedroom with decent insulation loses about 1,200 British thermal units every hour when it is freezing outside. Over an 8-hour night, that is nearly 10,000 British thermal units slipping away through walls, windows, and floorboards. Now imagine trying to keep up with that loss by burning wood all night. You would need to keep the fire going, burning through precious fuel, just to chase the cold out of the air. But the hot stone does not try to heat the whole room. It targets the sleeper, giving off a steady, gentle warmth right where it is needed most. That single stone can supply about a third of the total heat a bedroom loses overnight, without burning a single extra stick of wood after bedtime. The numbers flip the script on what efficient really means. Instead of pouring energy into empty space, the hot brick method channels it straight to the person, not the room. Add a second stone or use a heavier block, and you are covering most or all of the heat loss that would otherwise demand a pile of firewood. It is a direct, almost surgical approach. Every British thermal unit stored in that stone is a British thermal unit that keeps a body warm, not lost to the rafters. For families counting every log and every hour of labor, this math was not just clever, it was survival. The stone's slow, patient release of heat was proof that a simple, low-tech solution could beat the odds. In a world where most of the fire's energy vanished into the night, the bed-warming stone quietly delivered comfort, hour after hour, until the sun returned. Today, most homes blast heat through empty rooms while utility bills climb and grids strain. Yet a single heated stone, nothing but mass and memory, can still outlast a power outage or a price spike. The real lesson is not about bricks. It is about owning your comfort, not renting it from a distant utility. Sometimes the simplest warmth is the hardest to forget. Tell me how you would bring this trick back today.